This is episode number 380 of WP Watercooler, working in WordPress to code or not to code. Brought to you by our friends over at ServerPress. They make local WordPress development easy. Check them out over at serverpress.com. And Cloudways web hosting. Cloudways handles all the hosting complexities so you can focus on building amazing WordPress websites without any hassle. Check them out over at cloudways.com. Go support us over on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/WPwatercooler, where you can help us support us over there. Thank you very much. I'm Jason Tucker. I'm an IT director. You can find me over at Jason Tucker on Twitter.
Oh, I'm Say Reed. I make WordPress, WordPress, blah, 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 blah. Say Reed Media.
I'm Jason Cosper, aka Fat Mullenweg, here to talk some WordPress today.
You can go leave us a review. Go over to WPwatercooler.com/subscribe, where you can learn all those links there to subscribe, as well as leave a review on your favorite podcasting spot. We'd appreciate that.
One day, say.
I'm not used to coming first, and also never mind. Just
phrasing.
Yeah, I know. I interrupted myself. I'm not used to having my slide be first on the intro show, and then also I was really jamming to our new music. It's like super intense. It's like, what are they going to talk about tonight? On tonight, it's these people against these people.
Right.
That's what it sounds like. It's like we're going to do like a Survivor type show or something.
Yep.
That would be fun. We should do that sometime.
Speaking of Survivor, let's talk a little bit about WordPress.
Because WordPress Survivor. I'm a survivor. Do you want me to intro the topic?
Yeah, go for it. Please do.
Okay. So this a little bit stems from our show last week, and my not resolution, my thought resolution that maybe should I learn React? Should I bother to learn how to basically custom build blocks, etc. And then the resounding answer was no on the show, BT Devs. And then so that led to some conversation on Twitter. But also this week I had I'm upgrading a site that I built. So it's not a terribly built site. I'm not going to bash the previous web dev. I built it. It was fine. But I made page templates, as you do. And those page templates are custom page templates, and they're in the child theme where they go. But that was built, I think I built it like 2 years ago. I don't really remember what year it was or what year it is now. But I built it a while ago. And since then, Divi, which is a theme that I use despite all, complaints and objections to the contrary, has introduced the theme builder, where you can actually create templates within the admin, which makes them accessible for more future accessible than a hard-coded template, which is only accessible to actual devs, like actual programming capable people who can not only change it, but who can access it. Because hopefully nobody's editing any files through the theme editor for real. Still, let's hope. And even if they would, this is a whole, it's like using ACF and it's all this stuff. So it's, it's not just like straightforward HTML, obviously, in the custom theme. So the dilemma that I was facing is, do I build, upgrade and build, I'm making some more page templates. Do I build those the way that I used to in page templates in the child theme? Mm-hmm. Or do I swap those out and start building in the more user-friendly, less code-friendly Divi theme builder? And this is a dilemma that I'm facing. And I remarked on Twitter that it feels surprisingly emotional, this decision. I'm like, why do I have feelings about this? Like, I have feelings about whether or not it's not like, let me weigh the pros and cons objectively. It's like an emotional decision, which is weird. It should not be an emotional decision.
Yeah, no,
But
I get where you're coming from with that. I mean, like, I use Beaver Builder exclusively for my sites, and Beaver Builder has a thing called Builder that has this whole piece that you can say, I want to take this template that I've built and I want to apply it to all of the archive pages for a particular custom post type, and I want to
right,
build
which is
another
essentially
one.
the same thing the Divi Builder
Exactly.
does. I mean, and it's
Yeah.
doing the same thing as the page templates
Oh, yeah.
in it. I mean, it's the same thing. It's just putting essentially a WYSIWYG in between. It's a WYSIWYG
Right.
page template editor,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that lends itself to future edits from people who are not as technical versus the hard coding. But it's the same thing with like the React. It's like every site I make, I'm like moving further and further away from actually coding. And, obviously, like I have this one broken site where I'm like, using InStyle CSS to code things because the theme is so broken and we can't update it. But like, so there's still some coding and there's lots of customization, but my identity has been wrapped up in being a developer. And I think that, maybe it's not totally attached to that or anything, but it's not my whole thing, obviously. I make, teach, preach. So there's the other stuff. But this is kind of the dilemma that I'm facing. And I feel like this is a dilemma in WordPress across the board. And it has been. It's been something we've been talking about. But that's kind of the impetus behind that is like, and then there's another angle too, which we can talk about. But
yeah, so
what should I do, guys?
The only thought that I have is that, especially the way that I've been having to, the church I work for, I build their websites, and I also have a person who does design work for it. But they're not WordPress folks, but they need to be able to get in there and make changes to stuff. I've showed this person how to use Beaver Builder, how to do any of those sorts of things. So for me, it may not be for you, but for me, I want to make sure that that person is able to make those changes. So if I were to only use some type of file that I created in PHP and made it available and use all the correct stuff, that person wouldn't be able to do that. Where I can say like, hey, here, go in this thing in Beaver Builder, make some changes, and you're good to go. And if we ever add this new custom post type thing, you'll be able to go in there and make additional changes to it.
Right.
So it's like setting up.
But now you're not coding. Now you're in the assembly land or whatever the hell we want to call it, right?
Right. What do you think?
Yeah, last week I came out as someone who implements websites as well as codes websites.
Implementer. It sounds better than assembler, I think. Maybe.
Yeah.
You're like you came out too. You're like, this is part of it. This is part of me confessing. Like I've been implementing sites for a while now. Haven't been coding them.
A lot of my brand and personality is kind of built up in the fact that I'm a developer. But honestly, I had to do some work where I re-implemented a site using just Gutenberg blocks, not even Divi or Beaver Builder or anything like that. I just
built it out with blocks.
Yeah, built out a page template, built out an actual page with blocks. Right. And it was surprisingly easy. It took me less time than if I was actually getting in there and doing the code and work. I had, less of a troubleshooting step. In particular, like, let me figure out this layout isn't exactly how I want it. It was a matter of like dragging some stuff around, changing some borders in the WYSIWYG, and that was it. And there's something to be said for occasionally you have a job where, maybe for job security reasons, for just the fact that you still want to flex those muscles and kind of keep them in practice, you go and make a page template. But if you just are getting paid a small amount to kind of update and maintain the site,
or even a large amount,
Sure. But I mean, yeah, absolutely. You can be more efficient by charging the same amount, doing a little bit less work, and still, I mean, you're still performing the same function to
Yeah.
these customers.
And in theory, the changes and the upgrades in the future, because if they decide, oh, we want to change this word, I don't even have to, log into a back end.
Absolutely.
I log in and I bold something or I take something out of a WYSIWYG. So even if it is me doing it in the future, it creates an easier thing. So this is like, it's like a weird identity crisis.
Well, I mean, like, for instance, I'll give you an example of a plugin that I use pretty much on every single website, which would be custom post type UI.
Yeah, I use it as well on pretty much everything.
I could write a custom post type. Like, I can go do the research, figure out what all the pieces are that need to be in there.
We use a generator. There's generators that generate the code.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, I think of it as like a calculator. It's just like I can do the math, but really, I could just like just type this thing real quick, hit the save button, and even edit it down the road as well if I wanted to. So I don't even
use a calculator anymore. I just type the query into Google or well, in my case, DuckDuckGo, and I get the answer back. Like, who even needs a calculator anymore?
I know, you don't even have to figure out how to use multiple steps of a calculator. You just put the equation in there, and it's like, here you go.
And half the time it finishes it because it's like, oh, somebody else just as dumb as you had to go and do a search for this as well.
Absolutely.
So this dovetails into the other conversation that I was having on Twitter with someone who is jumping into, they were doing like 100 days of code starting in December or something, and they're learning to be a dev. And they responded to what we talked about last week, where we were kind of a little like, we were a little negative and depressed about WordPress at the moment. Maybe it was just the week that everyone was having. It's possible. But this person was like, it's stuff like this that makes me think maybe I shouldn't bother to learn WordPress because, is it even going to be there, or is it the way to do it? If I'm going to freelance, it might be useful, but if I'm, but is it a good bet of what to learn, because you're still in theory learning the PHP and learning the loop and learning all of that stuff. That's different than normal, more traditional coding. And my response to this person was essentially, if you are freelancing sites, honestly, you need design and marketing skills to build out and understand the needs of a client site much more than you need to program. Understanding just JavaScript and, HTML and CSS, or even whatever stack you got going on over there, isn't going to translate to building out a quality website for a client. It's not going to understand what they need UI wise. It's not, or in UX wise. It's not going to understand how they need to tie their stuff into MailChimp. It's not going to understand, all of those components, which have literally nothing to do with coding and nothing to do with programming.
Look at Gmail back in the day. Like Gmail, when Gmail first came out, it was an email. It was an email sender, email reader, email editor. Like it was just, it was somebody who described, I need an email program. Can you make me one? And then the developer developed it. It didn't have the flash to it. It didn't have the, let's make it a lot easier or anything. And that's kind of where you're getting at, is like that. It needs to have those extra little pieces in there so that someone isn't just, it's not like the prescribed way of interacting with this thing.
Well, I mean, it's also, are you building, if you're coding, your tendency is to custom code and build something from scratch, as opposed to, or editing an existing theme and doing that. But that's the focus of the coding and actually programming versus the focus of building out and using it as a tool to accomplish these, what are essentially marketing goals. And so my advice to this person, and my advice in general, is if you want to actually program, if you want to be a programmer, you should learn a language and go work for someone, not be a freelancer. I mean, you might be a freelance coder to do code jobs, but that would be working for agencies that need contractors doing code, not to build out whole websites for clients, because I don't think that is a skill set that lends itself to that anymore. It used to be, you used to have to make the whole thing from, HTML and, back in the day. And even with WordPress, you really did need to learn, you needed to know how to code in order to make it do custom stuff. Like you don't anymore. And so if you want to be a programmer, it's almost like you're not building websites for people anymore. Even like Squarespace, Shopify, all that stuff, those don't require that. You're building out websites, you're implementing websites, but you're not coding them. So there's really starting to be this split between it used to be all one thing, and now it's really not.
And with Gutenberg and the block editor, we're at a really interesting time where what themes are changing.
Yeah, really rapidly.
Really rapidly. So in 2 years, you teach yourself the loop, and you teach yourself, all the stuff that goes into themes. And I mean, basically, by 2023, 2024, by the time those themes roll out, I mean, it could just be, okay, here you have a blank page template, and just throw your blocks into it.
Right. And then I'm sure, I mean, Beaver Builder does it, Divi does it. I'm sure Elementor does it. I haven't really gotten into that so much, but they're making page templates and all of that. So Gutenberg is following that map. It's following that page builder map. So that is essentially, I'm assuming that somewhere on that path is Gutenberg page templates. It's kind of the pattern concept, essentially, in a way. So you're going to be building page templates with blocks and saving them. You've got your reusable blocks and all of that stuff. So essentially, that is going to be the future of page templates. So in terms of coding, the coding happens at the plugin company level, and at the theme developer level, or at the community, contributor level. But now if you're doing, like, I don't know who's building those. I don't know who that is anymore, because if we have people who are implementing WordPress, they won't be able to be there to contribute to the code because they don't have the code skill set. I mean, we're already seeing that split. So the people who are working on the code are less site builders and implementers and more coders who work for a company who are being paid to work on.
Yeah, like the hashtag no code movement is real. So much so that like they're in 3.0 apparently.
Oh crap! I didn't know it was like a whole movement.
There's an entire website devoted to like no coding stuff. Here's all the different tools that you can use to like do no code.
I mean, everything is like you don't have to code anything anymore. Like all these tools are there. Kids these days have it real easy. No, but like that's the problem. Like it was fun before, right? Like building this stuff. Like I enjoyed coding. I enjoyed PHP. Don't hate. I liked learning that. I liked doing those things. And like I can't justify sitting there and learning all the new JavaScript stuff if I'm never going to use it.
Right. I mean, I enjoyed Perl. I enjoyed Python. I enjoyed writing.
I enjoyed Ruby. I was learning that.
I still use the tools and techniques that I've done when I was a systems administrator. It's like, for instance, this intro that I have on WPwatercooler, I generate that intro from Canva, and I want to take that video file and I want to add nice little like fade in and fade out on both sides of it. I wrote one line of code that I just execute right in the terminal, and I say, here's the file I want you to do, and it spits out a new file that has the fades on both sides of the audio. I didn't have to use an editor to do that. I just act like it's here. Take this object and modify it, and then apply some, run a little script on it that's just going to apply the changes I need, and I got my result done.
Yeah, and so I'll say 2007, I was working at DreamHost, and I had a younger coworker who, for whatever reason, looked up to me and asked, "Hey, dude, do you think that I should learn? I've seen a lot of stuff around Ruby on Rails. Do you think that I should learn Ruby?" And I said, honestly, if you feel like that's where your career is going, absolutely learn Ruby. But I will tell you this, learn about the stuff underlying that Ruby runs on. So learn, where does Ruby run? It runs on Linux servers. So actually learn the server and the command line stuff, and wrap your brain around that. And even if you manage to learn Ruby and then Ruby goes away, and turns out Ruby, it's still around, but it's not the hot technology that it was 13 years ago.
I did just have to turn down. Someone inquired if I knew how to build Ruby sites, and I said no. You want to switch to WordPress? And they're like, no, we've invested too much money in this Ruby platform.
Right. But
and I was like, sorry, I can't help you.
but that coworker managed to learn sysadmin stuff. They managed to learn the server side of things, and how to like read config files and do all that sort of stuff. Reload Apache or Nginx or whatever. And
Right.
At the time it was reload Apache, but now I'm still friends with that guy, and they're a server administrator working for a company. Like, he's not a Ruby on Rails programmer. He learned Ruby,
Right.
but he still had the job skills, the server side job skills to and that's hell. That's how, when I went to go work at WP Engine, that's how I got my job. I was a guy who understood WordPress and understood WordPress really well, but I also understood the server side of things. And because of that, they're like, oh crap, we need somebody like you.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really the foundational stuff that doesn't go away. That works for, the Apache stuff. It's WordPress too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like the underpinnings of all of these different platforms, that actually has changed a lot less than all of the stuff built on top. So the bottom of the stack, I guess, is where you got to learn the core.
Those skills are useful, or can be used in a myriad of ways. Like, for instance,
editing your video file with the command line. I
don't know if you're aware, but there's like automation that's built into Photoshop. Like, I can go into Photoshop and I can say, I have 500 photos. I need them all to be resized this way, and I need, when it's resized, I want to also put a watermark on the bottom right hand corner. And I can go to Photoshop and just put in all the pieces that I need, because I have that mindset of being able to do the automation piece to it. Put them all in there, hit go, and they will just run a script that just does that automation for me. And I don't have, if I ever want to do it again, I just load it up and do it again.
See, those are those skills are like translatable to multiple avenues. So whether it's Photoshop or using the command line to edit your video and make it fade on both sides, or doing updates on your actual computer itself, that stuff is really translatable versus picking a code that you're going to go all in on and learn everything about it that then is not shiny anymore after a year or two.
Yeah.
So I really think that's the way to go, or go the direction of more marketing and understanding, UI, UX design, accessibility, and all of that, which is a softer skill. There's not really like you can't there's no way to demonstrate that in the same way that you can by typing out code and having something run. So I would consider it a softer skill, but it's still incredibly important to all of those people that you would be freelance clienting for. And then you just, you implement what you've got. But those become really different skill sets. Whereas before, even a couple years ago, even 2 years ago, those were really in the same bucket, and they're really not now.
I got really lucky towards the end of when I was working at WP Engine. I got an opportunity to go work with their marketing department. I was basically like their technical guy to double check blog posts, to actually be somebody in marketing who knew what they were talking about when it came to the technology side of things. So I actually got the treat, and I got to see how marketing worked, and it really helped me approach, I always kind of had a very binary view of how, okay, well, this technology will help you, or, this will, just basically like, this is how it's going to go, et cetera, et cetera. But once I actually knew the marketing side of things, I could have a little more of the kind of, like you said, say the soft skill, the nebulous, like more.
Well, it's applying the tool, I think, is really what it, you know what I mean? Because you can code things, but like, you're always coding for an audience. You're always like, if you're doing this for work, obviously you can code for fun, for nothing, for no purpose. But if you're doing it for work, it's either for a target audience that you're building the product, or the website, like you're building something for someone, or to achieve a goal, to sell something, whatever it is. And all of that is marketing, because just building something in a vacuum doesn't do any of that. And so it's not, I don't think you can really be just a freelance developer unless you're just working off of Fiverr at this point. Like, I don't know where that even is. Like, how does someone do, like, literally, unless you're like contracting for agencies who need someone to come in and, run a deep dive on this one area that they don't usually do. Like, if I had brought someone in to do this Ruby Rails project for my company, that would be someone I could get a contractor to come in to do that. But I would still have to do all the design and do all of the making sure that it's, they would just run the technical component of that. So it's really interesting from there's that no code push that you were talking about, but there's also the 100 days to code and learn code. It's the thing you should do. You can build websites for people, but the messaging of the learn code to build websites, that hasn't changed as quickly as, I guess with the no code thing, it's changing, but it hasn't changed as quickly as the push to actually it not being about programming anymore.
Yeah, I think it's hard. I was having a conversation with a few designer friends earlier this week, and they were talking about how they see people who are in these kind of UX and UI boot camps and the learn to code camps and stuff like that. And they say, like, once they finish, the 100 days of code program, or the 6-month UI boot camp or UX boot camp, that they're really only knowledgeable or skilled enough to get an entry-level position somewhere. It's not like, but they'll see people go, well, I went to a boot camp, so I know UX now. And it's a little dangerous. I was going to say, I know we don't have a lot of time, and I kind of want to dovetail back to this, that the person who asked you, okay, so should I even bother learning WordPress?
Right.
Should I even think about that? I think they need to figure out what their end game is. They need to figure out
what they want to do. What do you want to spend your day doing? Do you want to spend your day in the admin making websites and, helping people with their content and, making call to action boxes?
Or do you, do you want to freelance for a little bit and maybe inevitably go to a studio like WebDev or 10up or something like that?
Go work for Steve.
Yeah, go work for Steve.
We're recruiting people for you.
Yeah, he's not even on the show, and we're throwing him a bone. But I mean, Steve isn't going to take anybody just out of a 100 days of code boot camp. But they need to know, do they want to, like Say said, implement sites for people? Do they want to build blocks for the block editor / Gutenberg, whatever we're calling it this week? Do they want to make plugins that actually shape how what's going on the site? Are they interested in e-commerce, WooCommerce? Do they want to make a WooCommerce plugin to perform some function? What is their end game?
If you just want a job coding, I don't think WordPress is the you shouldn't even be learning WordPress. You would be learning code like GraphQL and JavaScript and all of those different code bases that can be applied to anything, regardless of whether or not they're WordPress-based site or not. So if you want to code, you got to reframe your brain.
Yeah.
Because WordPress isn't doing that so much anymore. WordPress, the site as a site builder, as opposed to WordPress as an agency or a company, like using WordPress as a tool. It's really interesting split. So I still don't know what to do about my site, but I'm probably going to end up building it in the theme builder because longevity, client use, I don't know. Hate at me on Twitter. Send me your opinion on Twitter, please. I'm taking the poll.
All right, folks. Well, thank you very much for hanging out with us. And thanks for bringing this topic to our attention so we're able to have something to talk about today. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We didn't solve my problem, though. But
no, we didn't. But, hey, well, maybe we'll do another episode where we
get to talk it out. So that's good.
Exactly. Talk to y'all later. You have a good one. Here's our outro. Bye-bye. Support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/WPwatercooler. The folks that helped us out over there, thank you very much.
Hey.
Hit the subscribe button. Click the little notification bell if you're watching us on YouTube. Thank you very much. And lastly, if you don't watch us, but you want to listen to us, which a lot of people do, you can go onto any of the places that you can listen to a podcast. Even if if you're listening on Spotify, you just go load Spotify and hit the play button and listen to us on there.
Hey, yo, hey.
Talk to you later. You have a good one. Bye-bye.